I decided for my reflection this week I would do a voice recording because one of my fears in class is talking out loud, so I figured this would be one of a way I could practice. So there was a lot to reflect upon our last discussion with our group. I'm in group 3 and we had a really, really good discussion. So upon discussing the first reading, which was a pedagogy of insurgency, teaching and organizing for radical racial justice in our schools. While we were discussing the first reading, we thought that it was easy to want to teach these things and bring awareness to certain topics, but we might be insecure to teach them. We might be worried about doing it incorrectly or stepping on toes. My view as a teacher is that I really want to incorporate subjects that I was not taught in school myself at that age, but I want to make sure I'm going about it the right way and not simply reading an article or maybe talking about a certain subject for 2 minutes to open my lecture. I also do not want to be offensive in any way. As a teacher, I'm scared to go about it the wrong way, and I might be hesitant to incorporate such material for that reason. Our group mentioned the example of Orange Shirt Day. Most teachers might share a brief summary of why, and that's it, and then have the students wear an orange t-shirt. But is that really doing that subject justice? And is that really the way? And could maybe these teachers be doing that because they were not taught how to incorporate such material in their classroom? Or maybe they're scared to. So we thought of an idea of perhaps universities could demonstrate how to incorporate these kinds of topics into your classroom. Whether it's through writing, stories you read, perhaps it was not modeled for us, or maybe we didn't pay attention. How can we make an interesting unit or project or include it during story time? It can be complicated to have a class of 30 different children who maybe come from different backgrounds. How can I teach in a way that does not come from a colonialist viewpoint all of the time? It would be nice if teachers could share ideas, or if first-year teachers learn some new ideas from education programs or from experienced teachers. One quote I did really like, found on page 16 of this article, was, "The educators in Seattle embodied a pedagogy of insurgency that was first and foremost based on a kind of bravery required to fight back against educational injustice. A pedagogy of insurgency requires bravery because it is an act of rebellion, and as such, it also carries a risk." Which means I think too many teachers are scared to lose their jobs, that they don't want to venture out. You don't want to step on the toes of anybody or step out of line. You want to keep your job, and maybe going out on a limb, you risk that. Which brings me to our next point, is what is our role in the school? Why aren't these materials readily available, and the training? Our group talked about how resources aren't always made available, trainings aren't mandatory, and they're not really advertised very well in certain schools. So should more resources be made available to teachers to help ensure equity for everyone? Do teachers even have time for all of this? We noted that there was strong language in the article, like insurgency, radical. Do these words need to be as strong? That might scare off educators reading this article. We also wanted to question, why do we need to battle to present these topics and have these conversations? So in Article 2, which was identifying your skin is too dark as a put down, enacting whiteness as a hidden curriculum through a bullying prevention program, by Rihanna Thomas. Our group discussed a lot about, if we don't acknowledge something of the past, people won't make amends. If we simply don't choose to not teach certain parts of our history, is that really the way to go about it? So that the kids are ignorant and don't know about the past? And one person in our group brought up the point that it's important to know your background. Every student in that class must know their background and be proud of it. Every child needs to know. One of the questions I really liked that I brought up in the conversation was, how does color blindness show up in schools and policies? How can teachers feel they can actively be a part of the change? What steps can they take in their everyday teaching? Do many schools find themselves in that range when it comes to color blindness? Would they rather just not talk about it and then act as if it's not there? How can we maybe have more teachers or resources, teachers out in the supervising? How can we change this? We have to actively empower those that have been ashamed. We have to give them a spotlight, so they feel they have a spot too. Which brings me to another question I really liked, was how can teachers promote equity in the classroom? And what changes can be made so that everyone feels safe at recess and lunch, etc. So equity is not just giving people a minority a space, but how can they feel on the same level as everybody in the classroom? Enacting whiteness as hidden curriculum through a bullying prevention program. We need to be aware of different cultures and their history and challenges. People might interpret things differently. It's hard when a majority, quote unquote, ruling class dominates the education sector to be aware of these challenges faced by others. It's hard when the people in position of power are of the majority group. How can they really see and understand how the minority feels? Those were my thoughts on both the readings and my reflections upon our group conversation last week. So I gave this voiceover a go at it, and we'll see. Maybe I'll try and do one again next week to help me practice.